Each courthouse is going to be different. Different players, judges, prosecutors, different rules and procedures. And the only way to really become an expert, the only way to become really knowledgeable about that is being in that courthouse every single day. Fortunately, there's at this time 8 different DUI lawyers in our firm, and we are in those courthouses every day. So I think we have a really unique perspective on how the courthouses in the counties within Illinois are all different. So what we're going to talk about today is a big one. It is the largest county in Illinois, and it is Cook County. We're going to tell you 5 different ways that this place to practice is much more unique than all the others. All right, Kelly, so let's tell the viewers, Cook County is a unique place to go to court.
It's one of the largest court systems, I think, in the nation.
So it covers Chicago proper, the entire city, plus tons and tons of suburbs as well. There's hundreds, over 100 municipalities, I'm sure, that are covered within this Cook County. That results in a lot of sort of unique things and a unique place to practice. One of them is just the way that the judges are set up there in Cook County, how they rotate. How is that unique?
So there is a presiding judge who's like a boss of all of the judges in Cook County. There's 6 municipal districts. There's also then a felony courthouse, which is not included in the 6, and then there's branch courts that's not included in that as well. So there are a ton of judges in Cook County. But as we like to say, each judge is kind of like their own island. A lot of judges have their own autonomy. They have their own way of doing things. And then there's also bosses of each municipality. So there's basically like a boss of each courthouse. So things are done so differently, courtroom to courtroom, courthouse to courthouse. One of the things is that in like Rolling Meadows and the Daily Center, the judges rotate there every single day.
Yep.
So if you have, say, a DUI that's lasting 10 months and you go to court 10 times, you might get like 10 different judges.
Yeah, they might rotate through. You just show up and you're not sure who's going to be there that day.
Exactly. So it does make it a bit difficult to practice in that situation when you don't know who the judge is going to be.
It does, but there's probably, I'm telling you, there are ways that we can use that to advantage.
Yes.
Our advantage, right? It's nice. You walk into court, maybe you got a trial or a hearing, you're trying to get something accomplished, and you don't know who that judge is going to be. You walk in, and if you're there enough and you know all these judges, you'd be like, yes, we got the good one today, right? Other times you'd be like, not so much. What can I do to maybe, switch this out and on the next court date to have this hearing? So those things do happen in Cook County. It's a pretty daunting place to practice if you're not intimately familiar with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why it's really important as a potential client that you find an attorney who is intimately familiar with the courthouse and the judges where your case is pending. Because if you don't have that insider information, you might be putting on a hearing or a trial that you were never going to win maybe in front of that particular judge.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to rag on any other attorneys, but I mean...
Nor are we encouraging forum shopping.
But it is a big county, and you do see some attorneys, going up in court, and you're like, who's that guy? I haven't seen him before, right? And it's a big place, right? And you get the regulars in the back going like, I can't believe he's doing that in front of this judge. Like, what's he doing? Like, if I could just get in this attorney's ear and say, hey, man, this isn't the place that you want to do that.
Certain things come up, too. Like, I was just in court, and I heard a fellow attorney, criminal defense attorney, talking to the state's attorney, and they did a 402 conference in front of this judge, and she got an offer that was way more extreme than like the minimum. Lots of conditions scrammed. She was saying her client didn't have money. Well, I heard through the grapevine that this judge is retiring at the end of this year. So I was like, FYI, she's retiring if you want to maybe get a date and see if, you could get something better in front of the new judge that's coming in here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure those things happen everywhere, but it is more prominent in Cook County. Judges retire everywhere, right? But it happens more in Cook County because of all the rotating, the in and out. They move. They're in neighboring counties. There's like maybe 3 DUI courtrooms. In Cook County, 25,
25,
30?
yeah, approximately.
Right.
It's really helpful to know too, like, is this going to be a different judge on the next court date when I come in here, or is this going to be my judge for the next 10 months?
Yeah.
You know, or if you're getting close to a switch, because like in Bridgeview or Markham, for example, they switch twice a year. You know, so if you know I'm getting close to the time that they switch, does that mean I need to hurry up and go to trial now before the judges switch, or maybe I need to get a couple of continuances and wait till the judges switch to see who it is?
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
it's one thing that's tough as well, and with each judge like being responsible for their own courtroom and not having a ton of uniformity, is the Zoom versus in person aspect. Like because we're a big firm, we're a team of attorneys, we're in pretty much every suburban Cook County courthouse every single day. We're intimately familiar with how each judge wants things done. So we're able to tell the client, like, hey, this judge is only in person for every single day, or hey, this judge lets us do Zoom so you can still go to work and just appear on Zoom for a few minutes.
Yep.
So that's really helpful too.
Yes, and really, really unique sort of untold aspect to Cook County. And another thing is the rotating prosecutors as well, just by virtue of the fact that it is a huge state's attorney's office, hundreds and hundreds of prosecutors, means that they're going to move around quite a bit too.
Right. The prosecutors also rotate, typically not every day. I can't think of any court room that rotates every day. I mean, that would just be an absolute nightmare. Nobody knows what's going on in this courtroom at any time.
Right.
But some courtrooms do switch prosecutors more often. The Daily Center is kind of like a hub for new state's attorneys and judges to come in, train, and then be moved to a more permanent location. So the Daily Center does switch a lot. And that's also similar to what I was saying about the judges. Like prosecutors typically do big switches, what would you say, like twice a year?
Yeah.
So we kind of have our finger on the pulse of that and know when it's happening. So that's helpful too, again, to be like, hey, this super reasonable state's attorney is about to leave here in a month. I'm going to sit down with them and go through some of my cases and see if I can get some reasonable offers from this person before they switch, and get somebody that's more green in here that maybe, can't make or doesn't feel that they have the discretion to make me as good of offers.
Yep.
And vice versa. Like, hey, this unreasonable state's attorney is leaving. I'm going to wait a month until I send my mitigation packet.
Yep. The players in the game are as important as the game itself, right?
It is.
It dictates sometimes the rules of the game. Who the players are dictate the rules of the game. I mean, we know of one district that is going to require, a bunch of community service and all this stuff done up front. This other district on the exact same case, exact same details is not going to require that, or require something different in order to sort of figure out who you're dealing with, in addition to just the pure facts, your case, the ever-changing law. So
it's helpful to know who the prosecutor is too, to have some deeper knowledge of the person. Like, are they a hard worker or are they lazy? That could help you to know, are they going to have all the discovery there for you on the first court date, or maybe not because they haven't even looked at the file and subpoenaed anything.
Yep.
Are they green or have they been around for a really long time? Do they know the rules of evidence? Are they going to know what the objections are and be lobbing them at you, or are you going to be able to get away with leading questions? And that kind of thing is really helpful when we're deciding what the best strategy is on a case as well.
Yeah, for sure. Those things can be said about anywhere, but nowhere that we practice to the degree that it is in Cook County. It's just a whole nother
It's
world.
the sheer volume of it, the volume of cases, the volume of people. I think like the bigger volume of people you have, the wider disparity, right, of people, experience, work ethic that you're going to get.
Yep. There are some unique sort of requirements within Cook County as well. I mean, they've kind of written their own rules on even some filings, haven't they?
Yeah. They're called literally Cook County local rules. And they don't trump a statute, for example. But some Cook County judges do expect you to follow these rules to a T. One example is a document called the petition to rescind the statutory summary suspension. That's a document that we file whenever somebody has a DUI that informs the court and the prosecutor that we're going to be fighting against somebody's license getting suspended. So there's two things that you could do with that document. You can either attach another document
Yeah.
called a notice of summary suspension, or you can basically put all of the information that's contained within that second document in your first document. But some judges, like I said, follow it to a T. Like it's supposed to be first name, middle initial, last name. We've seen judges say you don't have a middle initial
Yep.
here. Date of birth, address, date of arrest. I mean, the list goes on of things you need in there. Their gender
Yep.
is one. So there have been times where a judge has forced us to either amend the document to make it comport with that Cook County local rule, or threaten to even strike the document if it's not 100% in line with that local rule.
Yep. It's just a place you got to practice in order to, catch up on something. I mean, there's some counties that are 100% digital. Well, mostly digital, right? Where they're signing things electronically. And then there's Cook County where it's the old school. They've had the same stack of paper there for 30 years, right? Carbon copied paper. And you got to press real hard with your pen in order to press all the way through to the third page. It's just, it's unique. That's the story. And you can get very lost and confused if you're not there every day.
Yeah. So one obstacle we run into with filing certain documents that we need to, as soon as a client hires us on a DUI, is the officers have to have had dropped off the tickets on that DUI to the clerk. The clerk should be accepting our documents, whether that officers drop them off or not. But in certain suburban districts, we've had issues with that where they're refusing to accept our documents, and then that's affecting our client's property right, and we've had to file motions and bring it up to the court. So that's something that you need to be aware of and be ready to argue, and maybe even have case law in your back pocket to get them to accept those documents. You have to file them in person and get a file stamp on your document, and then also proof that you served the prosecutor, and then you need to have that hard document with those stamps to show the judge on the first court date. Otherwise, they don't believe that you've done anything that you were supposed to do. And like Derek was saying, in other counties, it's as simple as going online and just submitting it to the clerk, and then they email you a file stamp copy back, and they have it in their system, you have it in yours. You don't need to print anything. But in Cook County, they're very much still in the last century.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly.
But you just have to know this stuff. If you know it, you can work around it. But if you don't know it, you can be blindsided on the first court date, and then your client may think you don't know what you're doing just because you're not intimately familiar with how the particular county does things.
Yep. Another interesting thing I would say is that in Cook County, the courtrooms there's no dedicated DUI courtroom. In other counties, there are. That judge all day long hears DUI after DUI after DUI. But in Cook County, that judge hears, it's a DUI, and the next one is a traffic accident, and the next one is a seatbelt ticket, and the next one's back to a DUI, and everything,
Right, it could be a criminal misdemeanor, like a battery or an aggravated assault.
Retail
it could be a misdemeanor
theft.
gun. Yeah,
Right.
They're hearing the gamut.
Exactly. So what is the conclusion there is the judge who's only hearing DUIs all day long is probably more of a DUI expert than the generalist judge who's hearing a wide range of things. And so that's not always true, obviously, but there's some excellent judges everywhere. But, again, you want to know that to your advantage.
Yeah, especially because DUIs are so nuanced. I think some people think, it's a misdemeanor, it's a DUI. But, we spend a lot of our time on, the YouTube channel and stuff, talking about all the different nuances, and you want a judge that understands those nuances, especially if you're going to be arguing a weird legal issue in front of them.
Yes. Yep. We've covered judges and prosecutors and filings and then even how courtrooms are different. But we have not yet talked about any of the officers in Cook County. Anything unique about them?
Very, I think. I mean, because again, the sheer size, you have to think about all the towns that are involved in Cook County. One issue is how officers are gathering evidence in every different town. So we have a running list of every single police department, which of them have no squad videos or body worn cameras, which it might surprise you that some towns still do
Have
not
no
have
video.
squad videos. So you could have a DUI and it's literally the officer's word against the defendants because there's no video to back up the objective facts of what occurred on the day of the arrest. Some have both body worn camera and squad, and then some just have squad videos. So when you're waiting for the discovery to come in, you need to know if you have an argument that the state hasn't tendered you everything, and
Yeah.
you can't make that argument if you don't know that that district, doesn't have body worn cameras yet.
Exactly, right? All the time when prosecutors say, no, we don't have the body worn camera from, this arrest. Why? Is it because the officer didn't have body worn camera? He was issued it and it was broken. You had it and the file got lost.
Yeah, he didn't turn it on.
He didn't turn out, we got to figure that out. And surprise, surprise, the prosecutor either doesn't know himself or isn't just going to offer that up. Like, oh yeah, we screwed that one up, No, you got to kind of figure it out yourself. And obviously keeping that running list and having experience with that municipality and that judge in that courtroom and courthouse can be a major, major advantage. How about officers showing up in court? Is there a tendency there?
Absolutely. And it's, I think, department by department.
Yes.
Some departments have reputations where they're always going to come. Some officers have reputations that they're always going to come. There are certain officers known to be huge DUI writers, and those officers typically always come to court.
Yep.
So that's one of the first things that we do when we're looking at evidence, whether it be on a potential client or an already hired client, to be like, okay, I know this officer, 100% chance he's going to be there.
Yep.
And have 17 other DUIs up the same day, or I know this officer and he never comes to court, so that's super helpful as well.
So keeping our notes on officers has been proven really, really helpful over the years.
Another really interesting issue with the officer showing up or not is trial demands. So many people come into our office and say, when is this case going to be over? How long does the state have to send us the evidence, And the time is only ticking against the state and in the defendant's favor as far as the trial demand goes when the trial demand's actually made. It's not in everyone's best interest or the best strategy in every single case to start demanding trial right out the gate, So we do sometimes demand trial. And when that happens and the defendant's out of custody, then the state's attorney has 160 days technically to bring the defendant to trial.
Yes.
But what's great to know is in some suburban districts, the judges there will give the state that whole 160 days.
Yep.
It doesn't matter if they have a good excuse, if they don't have a good excuse of why the officer's not there. There's actually a statute that requires the state to prepare a motion requesting a continuance and attach an affidavit as to why they're requesting that continuance. And there's only 4 statutory reasons to allow a continuance, but
How many judges actually require that?
very, very, very few. In Cook County. In
Yes.
Cook County, I would say none. But in other counties, it is a 100%
Yeah.
requirement.
Yep.
There are some suburban districts that will give them the 160 days no matter what, and you and your client just keep going to court once a month and keep demanding, and there's not much you can do about it. There's other judges in other suburban districts that might give them 2 chances.
Yep.
And you know that, and you can talk to your client about it, and you can manage their expectations.
If you're keeping track here at home, we're talking about judges being unique, prosecutors being unique, the filings being unique, the operations within that courtroom being unique, and even the officers who are making these arrests having sort of a unique take. I mean, I know some officers, and so do you, that will always show up in adjacent counties, but just kind of refuse to go to places like a state trooper, right? He covers the entire state, and they'll literally pick and choose their favorite places where they will go and not
Right.
go.
Right. And
It's kind of wild if you think about that.
yeah, and whether they have to write it to the place that they don't want to go is dependent upon where the stop occurs. But then it's like, why even stops? I guess for people's safety.
Sure.
But then when the officer doesn't show up forever, the case is just going to get dismissed anyways, and people are going to be back on the road.
Presumably,
so,
there's
yeah.
plenty of people with not good representation or represent themselves or, stick their own foot in their mouth, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, the benefit of hiring an attorney that knows this stuff, because if you don't, and they're like, okay, well, you did X, Y, and Z, and you're not going to win at trial, so you should just plead without knowing the intimate detail that officer's never going to show up, so they're never going to demand trial.
Yep.
That could be the difference between, you being found guilty and your case being dismissed and ultimately expunging it.
So if you haven't realized yet, the context matters. Sure, the law is the same throughout Illinois, but it's not enforced the same. It's not, the procedure and policies are not the same throughout. And we went through in this video 5 ways that literally covered everything: judges, prosecutors, the actual filings and documents, the procedures in the courtroom and the setup of the courtroom, and then even the officers and how they all combine to make Cook County a very unique place to appear in court, to defend your case in court.